on, guys? I'm Matt here at CycleHunters.com, and one of the most irritating things is a dead battery. And what's even worse than that is an almost dead battery that kind of gives you a glimmer of hope that the bike's going to start, but ultimately lets you down by not starting. So, here at CycleHunters.com, since we are riders taking care of riders, one of the things that we really pay a lot of attention to is your battery. Now in this video, we're going to go over what we do to ensure that you are going to have no issue with your motorcycle and the battery that is in it. Sit back and enjoy, guys. Alrighty, guys. Now, we take batteries seriously because, as I said before, we have had issues where batteries have gone bad. So, if you look at our list, batteries are kind of ranked pretty highly here. We have 4 separate tests that we do that are related to batteries, and we also have certain criteria that the battery have to meet before we certify that battery as being good. Now, the battery we're working with today came out of this guy here. It's a 1998 Honda Goldwing. And the very first thing we do, before we actually work on the bike, the night before, we put a battery tender on. Or we check to see if the bike already has a battery tender on it. Reason being, we want to make sure that that battery is 100% charged. So if you look, this battery here is 100% charged. So we know that the battery is at least charged as much as we can charge it. Any bike that you buy from us will have a battery tender lead on it. Now, the next thing we do when we come in is we verify that the battery is the correct battery for that motorcycle. The reason for this is we've had instances where people put the wrong size battery in their motorcycle, and a whole host of problems can be surrounded by that. Either poor starting, the battery flopping around because it's not big enough to fit in the battery box. On motorcycles, they're very specific in how that battery box is set up. It's set up for the correct size battery. So to verify it has the proper battery, we have our actual battery catalog here, and it tells us just by looking. Look for a Honda. This is real time here. So we look for our Honda Goldwing. Right here, Honda Goldwing. 88 to 2000, since that's a 98, we know that this is the battery we're looking for. And it requests a Y50-N18L-A3. If we look down here, it's got all those parameters, Y50, N18L-A3. So we know that it at least had the proper battery in it. And we charged it all night. So the next test that we do is a battery test. So we'll pull the charger leads off there. Next test we'll do is just a simple battery test. Now this tester here we've gotten in recent years, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. So first thing we do is we select our battery, since this is a motorcycle battery. Come through, we say that it is in service because it is not a new battery. And then we just cycle through our list of batteries and we find the battery that this closest relates to. So this is a Y, it's going to take me a minute. Y50 N18L A3. So all we do now is we just test that battery. Now this says, as you can see, that we have a good battery. All right, now this is the tester that we used to use. And this tester here does exactly what this tester just did. It tells you if the battery is good, needs recharged, or that the battery is bad and needs replaced. So this is going to give you decent information about this battery. It just goes in and does somewhat of a health test and tells you if your battery is good or not. Now this and this, again, like I said, do the same thing to a certain point. This also has a function of doing cold cranking amps. Now cold cranking amps, why that's a good test is that's actually going to give you a better health test than just testing that battery alone will. Now what this book also provides me with is the recommended cold cranking amps that my battery should produce. Now if I look through my sheet here, see if I can find it. Okay, so I look through and I find my Y50 N18LA3 and I go through here, my cold cranking amps. All right, so I actually had to look at the battery itself, since this kind of cross-references into this or supersedes into this number here. So we look up I50N18L-A. Our cold cranking amp rating is 260 cold cranking amps. So the next test we perform is a cold cranking amp test. So we go under, and the nice thing about this is it has an automotive selection, and in the automotive selection it has the ability to test the cold cranking amps of the battery. So this is a flooded battery, and we're going to test the cold cranking amps, and this is rated at 260. So we're going to do a cold cranking amp test. So if we look, it still says it's a good battery, but our cold cranking amps are actually 248 and they should be 260. Now cold cranking amps, the way we look at this number is you should at least be 100 cold cranking amps over your lowest rated. Now since this is at 248 cold cranking amps, this battery actually was replaced in that bike. And even though it tested as a good battery, we look at cold cranking amps because from what we've learned in the past, if you see this number is below the rated, that's not very long before this battery is going to be crap. And if you look, this battery is already almost 3 years old. This video is made in 2021, so as a reference. This battery is no good, and more than likely it's because it's been overcharged or not charged enough, and that's why those cold cranking amps have suffered. So not only do we test to see if the battery is good, we also go through and test the cold cranking amps of that battery to ensure that it's going to not only be good, but be good for a long time. So that is the level of in-depth we go on just testing the battery alone. So we make sure that it's not the correct battery for the bike, and we also make sure that the cold cranking amps of that battery are going to perform for years to come. All right, now the last thing we do is we put the tester on the battery and we test the charging volts of that battery when the bike's running. Alrighty, now to check the charging system on the bikes, what we do is we actually test the charging systems through the battery tender lead. It does two things for us. One, it verifies that the fuse that goes between this and the battery is still good. And Two, we don't have to take the bike completely apart to actually test it at the battery terminals. So the first thing we do is verify that we're getting battery voltage, and then we just check the charging system. Now a good charging system is going to charge at about 13.7 to about a mid 14 volt range. This charging system is working just fine. Rev it up. Now, it may seem like a lot to do on just a battery, but that is the attention to detail that we put into those 48-point checks on these motorcycles to ensure that they are as close to 100% as we can physically make them. So what may seem like a lot of extra work is just common practice here every time we do that 48-point checklist on the bikes we sell. So just wanted to show you guys that so you understand the time and attention that we put into just something as simple as a battery. As always, guys, thank you so much for checking out these videos. If you see me in the shop, give a wave. All available fingers, please. And that's going to do it for this video. We'll see you in our next upload. Bye for now.
What do you got to say about that, Joel?
Go away.
What?
Leave me alone.
What?
Go away. Nobody wants you here. You're busy doing work now. Something you know nothing about.